Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's video, in which I am trying a new format here. I'm going to tentatively dub it the Drive With Me series here, and we'll see how it goes and progresses. But functionally, I'm just going to take my drive to work and try to record something fairly off the cuff and unscripted. Just going to kind of take a topic and run with it, see how that format goes. Welcome, anyone that may not have seen any of my videos before. I know this is a small channel. I've only got like a dozen videos up, so working on expanding it. But nonetheless, welcome to anyone that may be seeing this in me for the first time. Today, I actually wanted to talk about three foundational concepts or focuses in life that throughout my 20s and 30s has increasingly come into focus. Kind of the baseline for life, and what I found are the best to focus on, and I'm still working on. Life is a process, it's a journey, but nonetheless, this is kind of where it's at for me right now. And that is, I heard a while back that some of the best things to focus on in life come down to three F's, right? And so that is family, finance, and fitness. And I've blown off one or part of each of them at various times in my life. And, I went to college and ended up going all the way through grad school and got a master's degree and racked up a huge amount of student loan debt. And in the process, definitely got my fair share of credit card debt and enjoyed my college years, and definitely have not focused on fitness the way that I would now like to have. And I put off having a family for years. I didn't get married until I was 29, and which, I mean, nowadays is really kind of normal anyway. But nonetheless, it was still, I took my 20s very slow, right? On purpose. I wanted to enjoy them. I was one that was like a straight A student in high school, and so I felt really burnt out by the time I was around 18, and I did not know what I wanted to do with life. And so I just kind of floundered a little bit, but somewhat purposefully. It was an intentional slowing down. It was like just putting the brakes on and not really knowing what I was slowing down for, but knowing that I was tired of going at the speed I was, right? And that was a lot of my 20s, was figuring out, what am I doing? What do I want to do? And in the meantime, my parents kept encouraging me to just finish college, just finish a bachelor's degree, just do something, right? Because just working minimum wage jobs is going to be killer, and you're not going to get anywhere in life. You got to do something. And back then, because this was back in the 20s, we were still very much told as a generation, almost all millennials were, that college was the way to go. We hadn't kind of changed the general conversation to acknowledge that the trades are where a lot of the money's at. And the Great Recession really did put a damper, a harsh light. The economy for college students was not nearly as solid as we thought it was, or jobs were not as guaranteed as we'd once been told or hoped, and layoffs were disproportionately hitting white collar jobs, while trades jobs were flourishing. And many of the jobs that were coming back for college students and recent college graduates were disproportionately low wage jobs. So that's where you get the whole old stereotype of some guy with, piercings and a philosophy degree working at Starbucks, like that's really when that truly started and picked up and kind of became a bit of a cultural norm and expectation that you were going to see those types around, that you could have a college degree and still not have a good job. It probably existed in limited degrees prior to the Great Recession of 08, and technically the subprime mortgage crisis in 07, but nonetheless. So 08 is when it really hit a lot of us, myself included, right? And of course, naturally, I turned 18 in 07. So I was right there on the edge of, what the heck is this? And what is this new economy and job market looking like? And does what I've been told my entire life actually fit, And the short answer was no. And so after finishing an associate's degree, because again, I was purposely slowing it down. So I didn't want to commit to a 4-year degree initially. So I went for an associate's, then finished a bachelor's several years later. And then in my early 30s, decided to then go and finish a master's degree because I realized that having a bachelor's was in my field of psychology was basically worthless, and allowed me to get jobs that I pretty much could have had without a college degree at all. And so if I could go back and do it all again, admittedly, I would probably try to go into a trade like electrical work. Like I think I have a couple of buddies that are electricians, and I don't know a huge amount about it. I'm not going to pretend I'm at all educated in the matter, but just hearing what their days are like and what their job sites are like, and the fact that they wear like jeans and polo shirts most of the time. And yes, there is some physical labor to it, but it's not actually, doesn't sound like it's all that intense. And both of the guys that I know that do this work definitely have their beer bellies on. So, it's the level of physical difficulty and labor that's involved definitely seems to vary, but ultimately having a physical trade skill is, especially in this post 2020s age of AI that's developing now, is a good hedge against the slow but steady collapse of middle class, quote unquote, white collar jobs. And so my answer or realization was that if I wanted to make this viable, I had to push into a graduate degree. And that's exactly what I did. And now I work as a therapist, and I'm working on my hours to become fully independently licensed. But if I could do it all over again, I would definitely do things differently. So now that's my recommendation to my children. I have a 16-year-old stepson who is planning on probably looking into like mechanic work instead, and that I very strongly advocate for, because I think we will always need, or for the foreseeable future, will need people to work on vehicles, whether they be internal combustion engines or hydrogen or electric or what have you, or hybrids, whatever. And so I think that's a good skill set for him to develop. But with the development of AI and how relatively quickly it seems to be advancing, I may not, as a therapist, have a huge amount of good work for more than probably the next 5 to 10 years, possibly. I don't know exactly what this looks like. So I'm now also thinking, well, what else do I do? That brings us back to the main principles of trying to build these foundational assets in our life, right? Finance, family, and fitness. So over the last 6 months or so, I've started weightlifting a lot, and I'm currently on Ozempic and trying to get my fitness under control. That one's fairly self-explanatory, but basically maintaining your health. That's what a lot of it comes down to, trying to eat healthier, exercising consistently, largely regardless of what that looks like. Going on regular walks even would be pretty great. But maintaining your health and having the family focus, even if that means just yourself, even if you are just, in your teens, early 20s, even still in your 30s, or divorced in your 40s and 50s, etc. Doesn't really matter what scenario you're in. Family can be a party of one, right? If it is a spouse and or children, then obviously those are big focuses in life and should be among your highest priorities. That said, if it's yourself, then I think your biggest dedication or commitment to your family life as a single person really falls mostly on the other two. It's securing finances and fitness and / health, right? And finances in this day and age is definitely proven to be the tricky one for a lot of us. I know that even just trying to buy a home and save up, even with good credit, even with now fairly high income, it's kind of rough out there to get anything of a decent, quality for a decent price that fits the family that I now have of 5 people. And even most of the options that are out there that are technically feasible would leave my wife and I what they call house poor, or basically with high mortgage payments and almost all of your monthly income tied up into the ownership of the home and basic survival. And so that's a frustrating place to be in. The reality is we live in a society an economy that is structured to make the necessities of life more expensive at a more dramatic rate than most other items are increasing in value, and definitely outpacing wages. And it's all designed to be that way. This is actually the economy of the modern United States as it is intended to function. Just the elites that benefit from it the most won't tell us that. But the reality is, if you look at the rules, you look at the laws and regulations that are in place, that's exactly what the modern American economy is designed for, is to slowly squeeze out all of us, keep us as busy workers, keep us renting, keep us in debt, keep us effectively dangling in front of the promise of something better in the long term, while really leaving all of us exhausted and generally unfulfilled. And you do have success stories, people that, they go and work for their local city or county or even private industry like Walmart, and they stick it out in their jobs for 20, 30, 35 years and then retire, and they're able to have decent homes and raise their children and so on, and then turn around and half the time you hear that they retire for a few years and then they're physically having health issues because they spent so much of their time working and just bottling up the stress. It's now taking a toll on their body. And that story and various degrees or versions of it I've heard over and over and over again. And I'm even seeing in my own parents now that they're retired. My dad was a police officer for years and just retired a handful of years ago. And, he was a good, loyal company man, as they say. And he and my mom are struggling to, after setting up their lives as boomers that had advantages that modern, like millennials and Gen Zers, just don't, in terms of economic stability and relative buying power and so on. They still can't really go out and travel and do the things that they wanted to in retirement because of health issues. And like in my dad's case, it's largely related to his heart, right? Which has a number of signs of it being largely stress related. And the reality is law enforcement is a fairly stressful profession to be in. I worked in it for a while, so myself, and then realized that's not what I want to do in my life. But so I'm on the one hand impressed with my dad, and I'm proud of him for sticking it out and finishing it. But I also realized that's not the life I want. So my wife and I are moving more into frankly trying to aim for like a homesteading direction and buying some land, and then probably slowly but surely building it out, like probably starting with a tiny home or a trailer, and then installing fencing, and obviously we'd have to grade it and prep the land and stuff first, but like going about it that way, and with the realization and understanding and acceptance that I don't have construction skills. In hindsight, I wish I would have developed skill sets that would have really helped. And so that's a recommendation I have to people, is if you know what it is that you're going to need in your life or what you want in the future, it's worth it to invest in a trade-based career that may even help you build or develop your own, or at least barter and trade for it, even if you're, say, like an electrician or you're a plumber, right? And you can't necessarily build your entire house. I don't know that anybody in the modern day really has the skill set to do that well, or it's very few people. But if you have the general knowledge, that definitely puts you a notable step ahead. And if you're able to do even part of it, that can save you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in the long run. Meanwhile, as someone in the service sector economy, I have to pay the prevailing wages for everything. And that's okay. And I'm just realizing that I'm going to have to do it slowly, but there are advantages to working in foundational industries. But I've heard for a long time now from various mentors around me, many of which have been burned by the current economic system of the United States, is the trades, the jobs that built this country are the ones that are most likely to stick around, especially in the age of AI. And maybe eventually we'll all be replaced by highly advanced robotics with artificial intelligence. But when that day comes, maybe no job will be safe. So in the meantime, do what you can to focus on your finances and family and fitness. And if you haven't already chosen a career, recommend trying something in the trades if you're physically able to do so and willing to put in that work. And it definitely, I think, based on what I've seen from friends of mine that did go that direction instead of the graduate program that I did, while they may initially make less than, say, what I did coming out with a master's degree, they now own their own, companies. Effectively, they're self-employed. They're doing their own thing, both of them, and they make more than I do. They take home more than I do because they're working for themselves instead of somebody else. And I hope to do that same thing at some point, right? Once I have my full independent license. But they're able to get there a lot more quickly because they didn't have to jump through all the hoops of school. So if you want to do something specific, like becoming a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, an engineer, etc., then yes, college is very beneficial. But if you don't know what it is that you might like to do, this is mostly for those that are teenagers or in their 20s, or, I've considered going back to school or becoming retrained but don't know exactly what to do. Definitely look at your options, and at some point you're just gonna we will need to commit to something, but either a very specific job-based program in higher education or a trade, 100% going to be the ways to go. So I realize this concept of family, finance, and fitness isn't exactly an epiphany for most people. It's basic, but that is entirely the point. That often in life, when we feel like we're out of control or we're not achieving our goals, it's good to think about what should we be focusing on again, right? What should we be kind of pulling ourselves back to if we're overreaching or maybe doing too much or what have you. And I think the continuous pursuit of improving our and continuing to develop our family, our finances, and our general health, maintaining it in particular, is what opens pretty much every other door around you. So it truly is foundational. It's something that's been working fairly well for me as I've changed my mindset in recent years. And it's definitely helped lead myself, my wife, my family in general in a better direction than where we were even just 5 years ago. And I think I strongly suspect it will continue to. So that would be what I hope helps others. Just, hey, especially if you're younger, like you're not in your late 30s, but instead are, say, in your teens or 20s or early 30s even. Honestly, kind of that reset, that refocus, that mental clarification of what's important in life can be incredibly helpful towards guiding you into a future that looks a lot better than your past, and one that your future self will thank you for. So that's pretty much all I had for today. But thank you all for listening, for watching, for those that stuck around. If you find this kind of stuff interesting, like politics, culture, self-improvement, that sort of deal, then stick around because we'll be talking more about it. Later.